Good morning or good evening for you, John. How are you? Great. So you're in Toronto. I heard you're there on work. And yes, you're right. I am in Philippines near Manila. What type of work do you do?
I'm a student recruiter. I recruit students in China and bring them over to Canada.
Well, that's funny because I knew one student very well that went from Beijing to Newfoundland to finish her master's degree. And I actually went to that university a couple times. It was her and 13 other students that were in that program for the master's degree program.
I see. But the majority of my students are high schoolers.
Oh, really? So is this more like an exchange type program? Are they going there for their final, maybe junior or senior years in high school? Yes, actually, I'm from a place in the U.S. that's very close to where you are, because I've been to Toronto many, many times. Rochester, New York. And Rochester and Toronto are actually called sister cities.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
And years ago, they actually used to have a ferry for vehicles and people that went straight from Rochester to Toronto. But there wasn't, I guess, enough people either knowing that it existed, and it only stayed open for 1 year. I wish it was still going because I know a lot of people that make that trip from Rochester to Toronto. Okay, then you're very familiar with it. It's interesting because even after being there a number of times, I didn't know until probably my 5th trip there. They actually have that allowed me to travel a lot in the USA. I was traveling sometimes twice a week. And I did that for, the traveling part for about 5 or 6 years. I also had customers in Canada. One right near where you are, Research in Motion. They call them RIM. And it's better known as BlackBerry, was one of my customers. Yeah, I actually heard the noise of the traffic outside a moment ago. Yes, and I actually think it's a good fit because I have many, many years of business background in management, ownership, and senior management. Sonny gave me a lot of lists. Yeah, BlackBerry. That was one of them. Starbucks in Seattle. I've been there about 4 times. Yum Brands, which people may not know the name because they actually own Pizza Hut. They own KFC. Yeah, I was to, I think it was 8 of the top 10 food franchises in the U.S. and also some technologies like BlackBerry. And the reason I would say, is much different than some of the American, senior executives or presidents. He was in jeans and a very comfortable shirt every day, except for when they had internal business meetings. But for us and for walking around, he dressed like that every day. A very casual, comfortable person. So I would say that the Canadian executives or presidents, they're much more casual. They dress much more comfortably. They act and speak more in a common way. They don't try to throw, their position up to show that they're the big boss. Yeah, very casual. I was shocked because I went in there with a suit and tie. I had to hide my Android phone, they told me, so I shut it off and I hid it in my pocket because walking into BlackBerry with an Android phone wasn't a good idea. So how long have you been working in this position for this company? Yes, exactly. That's a great way to put it. He has the power. He makes a fortune in his salary, I'm sure, but he just looks like every common, everyday, normal person. Then he leaves work, probably jumps into his Bentley or Ferrari and drives home to his, $10 million home. And actually, when I had my business in Jiangsu, excuse me, I hired part-time 2 English students. The program worked out great for both of us because I actually had to do reports back to their school each semester on how they did, how they improved, and what I thought of their English abilities. And so they got credit for some of this as an assignment, I believe. And having 2 as a part-time gave me great flexibility with having a translator. Maybe one day my French is getting or will get rusty. That's an idiom. That means there's a different meaning to a word. Like rusty, it really means a piece of metal that's getting very old. But if you use it in the way you did, that's an idiom. That's something else that we could talk about. I use a lot of idioms in class so people could fit in with common phrases that are usually used in the US or Canada. Exactly, and that's an idiom because it has a different meaning than the definition of the word. Yeah, idioms or slang, very good to learn, not only for you to understand them when someone says something, but for you to fit in to more of the common way that people are speaking. Sounds great. You have a great evening, and I'll talk to you at our next class. Yeah, idioms or slang, very good to learn, and that's what we'll do at the next class or 2. It sounds like one of our topics could be actually travel, especially West Coast travel. So you decide what you'd like to talk about. And that's what we'll do at the next class or 2, and we can just decide as we go along. But I believe you have about 6 classes left. Yeah, idioms or slang, very good to learn, not only for you to understand them when someone says something, but for you to fit in to more of the common way that people are speaking. Sounds great. You have a great evening, and I'll talk to you at our next class.